Good morning, ma'am. My name is Danlia Rivera from BPED 1F. Now I will be reporting about the major causes of human trafficking. I have 5 principles, but before anything else, I will tell you the definition of my report. Here, the definition: mass displacement, extreme poverty, lack of access to education and job opportunities, violence and harmful social norms like child marriage are all factors that push individuals into situation of trafficking. Now, I will tell the number one what is the major cause of human trafficking. Number one, poverty, war, natural disaster, and search for a better life. The definition is those people tend to be migrants fleeing their homes either because of the economic hardship, natural disaster, conflict, or political instability. The displacement of population increase individual emotional vulnerability, and frequently they do not have the financial to support to protect themselves. Because the poverty of human trafficking, it's a very affected the individuals in the society because of the restricted country, and they don't have any financial to protect themselves in the violence. Now we can see or we can observe to other country in their society that there are a lot of people suffering because of the violence, hardship, natural disaster, conflict of the political instability. Number two, women and children are targeted. They are also targeted because of the demand for women in sex trafficking. A report by Equality now states that 20.9 million adults and children are bought and sold worldwide into commercial sexual servitude, labor, and bonded labor. My explanation here that we can observe in our not in our society and to our other country that there are a lot of women and child for a sex because of the difficulties in the daily living, and because of and they are targeted by the other people to to for to for their daily living life, that they need to support their self, and because of the demand of the sex for human trafficking, it's not very relevant nowadays. Number three major demand of human trafficking is demand of cheap labor. Employees are often initially promised a safe work space and steady salary only to later find that they are paid less than minimum wage and work overtime. This kind of situation nowadays, there's a lot of job that they didn't pay in the minimum wage, even though we're working in overtime, that they need to pay the overtime because of the hard work, the determination of people to have a good job, but because of the owner of the company, they didn't pay the minimum wage for the people that they need to get the salary in a minimum, because nowadays it's a very relevant in our society, not only in our society and to other countries too. Number 4, human trafficking generates a huge profit. According to the ILO, the human trafficking industry generates a profit of $150 million per year. Human trafficking is the fastest growing and second largest criminal in the world after drug trafficking. Now we can see in our society, in our whole world, that the fastest growing of the human trafficking because of high percentage, like $150 million, because of human trafficking that violence the human, which is not good for in our society. We need to protect, we need to give knowledge for those people discriminate the human, because they have the right to live with a better life, with a better future. Cases number 5, cases of human trafficking are difficult to identify. Some challenges in identifying victims of human trafficking arise because victims are well hidden or highly traumatized, which is this case. There are a lot of people abuse of human trafficking, which is not good, but because of the hardship of that people, the people is doesn't have guts to report to the police or to government because of the traumatized what happened in the previous life, which is it's difficult to identify those person who abuse human trafficking. Thank you, ma'am, for that this day. That's all my report for today. Thank you and God bless.
So, good day everyone. My name is Carl Genti Teves from BPED 1F. My topic is all about elements of human trafficking. So, elements of human trafficking. On the basis of the definition given in the Trafficking in Persons Protocol, it is evident that trafficking in persons has three constituent elements. The first one, the act, what is done. The second one, the means, how it is done. The third one, the purpose, why it is done. Element number 1, the act or acts of human trafficking or what is done. Recruits another person for the purpose of exploitation. Second, transports or transfers another person. The last one, harbors or receives another person for the purpose of exploitation. Transporting involves moving a person to another place in order to exploit them. For example, a trafficked person may travel normally and legally with a passport if they crossing a border by bus, car, air, train, or other transportation. In other cases, to prevent exposure, the trafficker may force them to travel illegally and or in dangerous and uncomfortable ways such as in the trunk of the car. Transferring occurs when the trafficked person is transferred from one person to another. Harbors or receives another person for the purpose of exploitation. Harboring or receiving occurs when a human trafficker hides or houses a trafficked person and keeps them under control in order to exploit them. Element number 2, the means of human trafficking or how it is done. Traffickers use a variety of tactics to get a traffic person to do what they want and to maintain control, including the use of the first one, violence or threats of violence against the person or her friends and family. A trafficker will often use violence or the threats of violence as a control tactic. The second one is coercion. A trafficker may coerce other person through fear, such as the fear or being returned to a war-torn home, being separated from loved ones, or losing immigration status. The last one, abduction. Abduction is the act of leading someone away by force or lies. The trafficked person may be made to fear that they or their loved ones will be sexually assaulted, beaten, or killed, or may be forced to witness the beatings or sexual assaults of others to make sure they comply with the trafficker's demands. The second one is coercion. Example of this is when you threaten someone harm if they do not sign a contract. Abduction is the act or process of illegally taking away a person by using force. An example of abduction is a criminal driving away with a rich person's child tied up in the back seat. Element number 3. The purpose of exploitation or why it is done. The purpose or purposes for which traffickers use the people they traffic may vary, but the ultimate goal of all traffickers is the same. They exploit other human beings for profit, which can be a financial gain or material benefit. Sexual exploitation can take many forms, including these examples: sex trafficking, taking pictures of a child for pornography use. Forced labor. Poverty is one of the main causes of forced labor, as well as a lack of labor in the agriculture sectors, decent employment opportunities, and discrimination. It is one well concealed and in some countries ingrained after years of exploitation. As a domestic servant may be forced to clean the house, do the laundry, cook meals, maintain the lawns and gardens, and look after the children, elderly relatives, and pets. Most trafficked domestic servants are required to be available at all times and work every day for little or no pay, and they are often verbally, physically, and sexually abused by members of the household. The trafficked person may have no control over their travel or identity. Documents such as their passport, which may be confiscated by the employer and trafficker.
Human trafficking
The
is one
organ
of the
removal is
largest and
often
fastest
conducted in
growing criminal
clandestine
industry
clinics,
in the world.
with
As
little
many
or
as
no
27
attention
million
given to the
individuals
trafficked
living in
person's
slavery-like
post-operative
conditions.
care. The
Human
organ is
trafficking
then
is
sold
often a
on the
crime of
international black
opportunity.
market for large
However,
amounts
certain
of
situations
money.
help
If
traffickers
the
to
trafficked
flourish in
person
the crime.
survives the
The dire
surgery, they
conditions
may
of war and armed
receive a
conflicts
tiny
contributed
portion
to this.
of that money.
Anyone can be victim of human
And that's all.
trafficking.
Thank
It
you.
can be our friends,
Good day, ma'am.
family,
My name is
or
Maria Escobar
even
from
us.
BPED 1F, and my
What we
topic is
need
all
to
about
do is
human
open our eyes in
trafficking.
what is happening in
So
our
our daily routine with
surroundings
regard to the
and
topic
be
of
vigilant
clarifying
so
that
that we can
trafficking
save
refers to the
ourselves
state
from
or
serious
settlement elements.
problems like
1. The
human
act, what is
trafficking.
done. 2. The means, how it is done. And 3. The exploitative purpose, why it is done. Some acts of trafficking involve conduct that can understood as a form of torture, inhuman, or degrading treatment, which is prohibited under the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, CAT Article 5 of the UDHR and Article 7 of the ICCPR.
Good day to our teacher and to my classmates. My name is Mayan Cabrera, member of Group 11 Reporters. My topic for today is types of human trafficking. But before that, Let's discuss the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling. Human smuggling and human trafficking are very much different from each other. Human trafficking is a crime committed against an individual person. It is a long-term exploitation of people traded as commodities for the sole purpose of economic gain. For example, forced labor, marriage, and sexual exploitation. It usually through the use of violence, threat, or coercion. It does not require crossing international borders. Victims can be trafficked in their own country. It is never consented, or if they initially consent, it is meaningless because of the coercion or deceptions of the traffickers. Human smuggling is the facilitation of the illegal movement of people across the international borders for a fee. The person typically requests the smuggler's service and the arrangement ends upon arrival. There are three types of human trafficking. First is sex trade, second is forced labor, and three is domestic servitude. And now, let's discuss the sex trade. Sex trade is a crime when women, men, and children are forcefully involved in commercial sex act. In United States, any minor under the age of 18 engaged in commercial sex act is automatically considered a victim of sex trafficking under the law. Forced labor is the most common element to modern slavery. It is the most extreme form of people exploitations, although many people associate forced labor and slavery through physical violence. In fact, the way to use force to people through work are more insidious and engraved in some culture. In 2012, the International Labour Organization estimated a total of 24.9 million people were victims of forced labor around the world. It listed Asia Pacific as the most number of forced labor victims with total of 11.7 million people. Forced labor happens in the context of poverty, lack of sustainable jobs, education, as well as a weak rule of law, corruption, and economy dependent on cheap labor. Lastly is domestic servitude. It is a form of human trafficking of human being, which is extremely difficult to detect because the work is performed in private residence, seemingly normal practice that is used as cover for exploitation and control of someone, for example, nannies and domestic help. It is seemingly normal practice of live-in help that is used as cover for exploitation and control of someone, usually from another country. It is a form of forced labor, but also warrant its own category of slavery because of the unique context and challenges it presents.
That's all. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone, especially to you, Mom. My name is Adame Rubia, and my topic is about human trafficking, the problem. Human trafficking happens in almost every country around the world. Traffickers represent every social, ethnic, and racial group. Various organizational types exist in trafficking, including large nationwide gangs and criminal organizations, local street and motorcycle gangs, and individuals with no affiliation with any one group or organization traffickers. Organization traffickers are not only men, women are also perpetrators. Increasingly, traffickers are using tactics to lure children and youth into commercial sex acts and compelled labor. The base of the issue is the traffickers' goals of exploiting and enslaving victims and the coercive and also deceptive practices they used to do. Traffickers may exploit for the purpose of commercial sex or forced labor, like recruiting, enticing, harboring, transporting, or maintaining a minor for the purpose of commercial sexual exploitation. Exploiting a minor through prostitution, exploiting a minor through sex tourism, exploiting a minor through bonded labor or death bondage, exploiting a minor by having her or him perform a sexual venues like peep show or strip club. And those are the things that human traffickers do. So that's all. Thank you.
Human trafficking is one of the largest and fastest growing criminal industry in the world. As many as 27 million individuals living in slavery-like conditions. Human trafficking is often a crime of opportunity. However, certain situations help traffickers to flourish in the crime. The dire condition of war and armed conflict contributed to this. Anyone can be a victim of human trafficking. It can be our friends, family, or even us. What we need to do is open our eyes on what is happening on our surroundings and be vigilant so that we can save ourselves from serious problems like human trafficking.